Many good questions. So, welcome, gentlemen. We will begin with Steve Schuff, then Damon, and then Ken, and then Kenneth, and then Ken. And then starting at Damon all the way down. And if I mess it up, I know they will keep me on track. Okay, Steve, this begins with you. Okay. What is your judicial experience and other experience, and how has it prepared you for this judgeship?
I think your whole lifetime is an experience. And I started out as a paper boy for the Plain Dealer and went as a clerk for Paul and Dick Supermarket. But at the age of 20, I was able to work in the Seneca County Prosecutor's Office and continued working there until I became an assistant prosecutor, then a county prosecutor, then private practice. And I've been judge, had the opportunity, the honor, privilege to be judge of the Seneca County Common Pleas Court, and I'm in my 24th year. So I believe all that experience is what I bring.
Okay, Damon?
Sorry, got to remember to do that. My experience, I started off with my own private law practice over 15 years ago. After passing the bar, choosing to remain and live in our community, I then had the opportunity to work as a prosecutor for City of Tiffin as an assistant prosecutor. It was a great learning experience doing jury trials, court trials, various motion hearings, along with my private practice law experience. And then I moved on to the Seneca County Treasurer's Office. I still continue to practice law, and I've been in and out of the courtroom over my entire legal career. I had the opportunity over 3 years ago to become a magistrate for Judge Kelbley. It was a great opportunity to learn the role from the bench. I've practiced as a criminal defense attorney, prosecutor, and now as a magistrate and acting judge. So I'm prepared to be Common Pleas Court judge. Thank you.
And Kenneth, excuse me.
We both go by Ken, so it's okay. We can watch it. My first experience in the court system was as a child going through custody battle, a contested custody battle. And in that personal experience, I feel that the hearing officer, at that time they were called referees instead of magistrates, made the correct decision and where I was going to live my childhood. And frankly, my life could have been completely different. I've been Judge Schuff's magistrate in the Common Pleas Court for over a decade. I presided over more than 1,000 cases in the Common Pleas Court. I was an acting judge in Tiffin and Fostoria Municipal Court for over 6 years. I was a felony prosecutor, a felony defense attorney, a civil litigator in the Common Pleas Court. I'm licensed in the federal court, and I've completed training from the National Advocacy Center, the United States Department of Justice. Thank you.
And Ken.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ken Egbert Jr., and I'm originally from Tiffin in Seneca County. I'm a sixth-generation resident. Like Judge Schuff, I also delivered the paper, although I delivered the Toledo Blade in the southern part of Tiffin. But I'm a graduate of Columbian High School, Tiffin City Schools, the Ohio State University, the University of Toledo College of Law. And I chose to come back to Tiffin. I was the first full-time assistant prosecutor under then prosecutor Paul Kuchar, and I was an assistant prosecutor and served 9.5 years before being elevated and becoming the Seneca County prosecutor. I did that for another 10 years. So I have a total of 19 years of local experience in our Seneca County Common Pleas courts prosecuting felony crimes in front of originally Judge Spellerberg and then Judge Schuff, his successor, and then also in front of Judge Kelbley, which is the position that us three are running for because Judge Kelbley's age limited. The last 13 years, I've been an assistant Ohio Attorney General where I've prosecuted felony cases and civil cases in 40 different Ohio counties.
Okay, the next one we start with Damon, and it's have you done pro bono work?
That's a great question. With being in private practice over 15 years, I've done more pro bono work than I can recall. I started off with my practice getting a lot of court appointments, whether they were in felony court over in Hancock County. And I found myself getting appointed to a lot of cases over in Hancock County Probate Court. And those cases arose with guardianships. And oftentimes, you're helping out where there's no one else to help out the elderly. You do those cases, they have no funds, there's nothing to pay you. You're cleaning out homes, you're getting them taking care and making sure their needs are met, making sure they qualify for public assistance programs. And you're doing that because you care, and you want to do a good job and help people that no one there is left to help them. You're going to nursing homes, things like that. I've also done other pro bono cases for clients that don't have the ability or means to pay for legal services. Somebody needs to advocate on their behalf. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kenneth?
Thank you. Well, I've done court-appointed work, but that's not really pro bono work. The court pays you from a budget, and that's paid legal work. Pro bono work is where you do legal work for free. I participated in downtown Toledo in a clinic where we served underserved folks, this is when I was in private practice, to allow them to create a living will and a healthcare power of attorney so that they had the ability to take those simple documents where we could meet with them as part of this clinic, take those simple documents and have something that their family could use to inform their medical decisions. I also, as a pro bono attorney, volunteered my time this was more of a fun one for me, but at a radio station and television station where people could call in and ask for free legal questions. And I've done a lot more of that free work as well in private practice.
And Ken?
Yes, as far as pro bono work, when I was a third-year law student, I participated in our International Law Society where we went out and we did talk to local community members about issues relating to the law that impacted them in the city of Toledo. Other than that, I've been involved more in the community in my private capacity, serving as a member of Tiffin Kiwanis and also for the Zenobia Shriners and the Tiffin Shrine Club, which helps people in the community and also in other parts of the state with regard to pro bono issues.
Now, the next question, part of it you've already answered. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Your Honor,
Thank you.
may it please the court.
It does. Thank you. Pro bono work is very important. And I think if an attorney has not done pro bono work, then he really isn't part of a community. I started at age 28 being the attorney for the Ritz Theater. I was one of the founding members of the Ritz Theater in 1981 and continued on the board and giving legal service for 12 years. I've given legal service to churches, fire districts, and others free of charge. That's part of being part of a community. I had an old classmate who needed some legal work done, could not afford it. I did the legal work. He continued to pay me in vegetables for years. I think I got the better end. Thank you.
Now we'll begin with Kenneth. And you've already answered part of the question regarding your civil and criminal. But this one also would like to know your experience with domestic relations.
I did answer part of this, my personal experience in domestic relations as well. In private practice, one of the parts of my private practice wasn't a general practice. I was a litigation attorney, a trial attorney in private practice, and that's how I made my money. I was a family attorney, and I have for the last 11 years presided over hundreds and hundreds of cases, domestic relations cases, right here in our community, in the Seneca County Common Pleas Court. I am completely, essentially responsible for putting into place Judge Shuff's court and management docket style in the domestic relations court, and that's what I've done for over a decade. So I can't count the number of domestic cases that I've been involved in my career, as both private practice and a judicial officer here in Seneca County.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, my practice has primarily been in criminal prosecution and civil enforcement, not as much in domestic relations work. The magistrates handle the domestic relations work, generally speaking, in Seneca County, and that would continue if I was judge. But my experience has been that the cases that go to trial in common pleas court are generally the criminal cases, and I have 32 years of experience as a courtroom litigator handling cases and the ability to handle the issues that relate to trials, including admissibility of evidence and other issues concerning jury instructions that a judge has to handle when we have trials at court.
And Steve?
Domestic relations is a very difficult area of the law that common pleas court judges have besides civil and criminal. I was in private practice for 20 years. I handled domestic relations cases. I've been judge for 23 and plus years, and I supervise the magistrates that handle the domestic relations cases. It is very difficult. One of the most difficult things is making sure children are taken care of in domestic relations, and that deals with custody, as well as visitation, child support, and other matters. So experience in domestic relations is extremely important because you're dealing with people's lives.
15
Thank you.
seconds.
Thank
you. And Damon?
I have extensive domestic relations experience. With being in private practice for over 15 years, I handled multitude of divorce, dissolution, custody cases on behalf of clients. When you have a small practice in a rural community, you are always going to court. You have a trial practice because you always have to litigate the issue. You're going to court to represent parties. And since becoming magistrate, I've handled the domestic relations docket for Judge Kelbley. And part of that is I preside over divorce, custody cases, and I work to ensure the best interests of the children are always met. And part of that, is always working the case through, not rushing the case, making sure if there's a need for other professionals to be involved and evaluations to be made, that there's an opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Damon. The next two questions deal with mental health issues, and we begin with Kenny Egbert, I believe, correct? Okay. Do you have a plan for handling cases with mental health issues? And this is unrelated to pivot court, which is the next set of questions.
All right. Starting with me, right?
Starting with you.
Okay, yeah, I would be interested in determining with the other judges the mental health docket would be appropriate for Seneca County. It's my understanding that Ottawa County has such a docket, and that would be a way to handle cases so that mental health individuals can get the help they need without the handcuffs. And what that means is that we don't incarcerate individuals that have mental health issues and basically warehouse them while they have pending charges if it's a criminal case. It's my understanding that NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Health Issues, is involved in Seneca County and has a program established with the probate and juvenile court. And I would see once it would be important that we look at expanding that if we can.
Steve?
Many felony criminal cases have mental health issues. So it's important for the judge to look at that right away at the very beginning of the case. And at the very first hearing, we could do a competency exam in court to find out what issues they may have, what type of mental health issues they might have. Then we refer them appropriately. We can do a competency exam. It's free of charge through the state of Ohio. We also may get Mental Health Recovery Services Board, and Mersha Handrew and Robin Reeves and others will assist us with mental health issues. But it needs to be addressed. Otherwise, the
15
case,
seconds.
thank you, the case will not proceed smoothly through the court system. Thank you.
Damon?
Thank you. If elected judge, I would like to create a specialized docket court for mental health. As Mr. Egbert had said, Ottawa County does have a mental health court. We're seeing this more and more. I would like to follow the same direction as the Seneca County Pivot Drug Program that allows for a multi-jurisdictional court, because You may see, if you're in municipal court, more individuals coming through with mental health needs that need to be assessed because they're being charged with disorderly conduct or persistent disorderly conduct. And law enforcement sees there are issues there that need to be addressed. And that way it could be a means for referral like we do with the Pivot Drug Program. We need to make sure people are having the opportunity to receive treatment and they're taking the right course of meds. Because lots of times in mental health, one of the hardest issues is getting people to be med compliant, following through with their recommended course of treatment. And jail is not the answer. We need to put them on the right path and make sure they can have safe, affordable housing.
Time. Kenneth?
Well, I think it'd be silly to say that I'd be against anything that I think could help people in the Seneca County Common Police Court. Not to step on, I know that Pivot is next, but the reality is what we see, we've been doing this a long time. Mental health and drug addiction go hand in hand in our community. We have amazing resources through the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board with Murchall's leadership, with our partners, private partners at Oriana House, as well as other folks to help people deal, and Forensic 5, for instance, to help folks deal with mental illness. The practical reality for me is, and just my personal experience is, when we're dealing with mental health, it's very rarely simply a mental health issue, and the law already has something in place for that with competency exams, et cetera. What we see and what I think we really need to continue tackling is the overlap of mental health and drug addiction in our court system, and that's why we have Pivot, and I'm happy to talk more about what we do with mental health and Pivot because it's a lot. Thank you.
This next question will start with Steve. And it's somewhat related to what you've just been discussing, but it deals more in handling the person. How can the courts help reduce incarceration, promote treatment, and reduce overdose and suicide deaths?
Right now, Pivot is the answer. Pivot is a multi-jurisdictional drug court that takes people that are addicted to controlled substances or even alcohol and place them in a minimum 15-month program with 5 different phases to try to bring them into a more stable, safe, and secure lifestyle. We have a team of 12 people that make up Pivot that do a fantastic job with the people that are participants in Pivot. So I think Pivot is the major way for us to help those with addiction. For those who are not addicted but are selling illegal drugs, then we have the prison system. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Damon?
I think as a judge, all the judges
people that make up Pivot that do a fantastic job with the people that are participants in Pivot. So I think Pivot is the major way for us to help those with addiction. For those who are not addicted but are selling illegal drugs, then we have the prison system. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Damon?
I think as a judge, all the judges that are part of the Pivot multi-jurisdictional system need to be very proactive when they see defendants come before them to make sure that if there's a possibility where they could benefit and have substance abuse issues, that they are referred over as part of any sentence in order to see if they qualify for the Pivot Drug Program. Because I agree with Judge Shuff. Pivot Drug Program's great. I'm certified, I actively participate in that program, and I see the merit and benefits for the residents of Seneca County that participate in that program. It's amazing seeing those individuals from the start of their journey in the Pivot Drug Program until graduation. Seeing their struggles, and Pivot's a great intensive probation program to make sure and help them to succeed and provide them those tools to be a vibrant member of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. Kenneth?
Thank you. I think it's a great question. I'm licensed by the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. I am proud to say that I'm part of the team here in Seneca County that formed Pivot. Pivot is saving lives every day. We currently have 52 participants in Pivot. We have a budget of $775,000 a year. It is completely grant funded. We have 2 federal grants. We have 1 state grant that we were able to secure with the help of the Mental Health Recovery Services Board as well as Senator Reineke. Another thing that we can do to help recidivism, which is really the whole goal, is to keep these people back out of the criminal justice system, is I'm happy to say that I helped finalize work on a contract for private Seneca County Probation Services. We can take it out of the hands of Columbus and the APA, and we have individual control over our felony probation officers so that we can craft individual probation plans for each offender. Thank you.
Kenny?
Yeah, Pivot's an excellent program because it's locally controlled, meaning the judges here, not just common police court, but also municipal court. That's what it means to be a multi-jurisdictional court. Has the monitoring and the testing and the frequency that's needed for purposes of addressing addiction. And it's under court supervision, so that once an individual is arrested, the court intervenes, the person becomes part of the program, and of course, it takes a person that wants to address their drug problem. Not everyone wants to do that, but people that do want to address their drug program have an opportunity. And it's a holistic approach, is my understanding, in terms of they don't just look at the abuse issues in terms of drugs. Other underlying issues involving the individual are looked at, whether it's mental health issues or obtaining a GED, which is an educational issue, and obtaining employment. So it's a local program that's been very effective in reducing recidivism.
If we could just take a moment, and Steve, I'm going to ask you to do this since you are on a separate ticket, separate race compared to the other 3.
Yeah, there are 2 judges' positions.
Right.
That's one, and this is one.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you please just give a very, very brief description of the Pivot Court for our audience and our viewers on television?
Absolutely. As indicated, we had to get state legislative approval for Pivot because it is a multi-jurisdictional court. For history buffs, it's revised Code Section 1901.86, and that allows the municipal court to join with the felony courts to place everyone into a program. The program has 12 people, recovery coach, 3 caseworkers, 2 probation officers, a cognitive skills person, a recovery coach, an executive director. There's a lot of people. They do a fantastic job of working with these people. The court meets once a week, every week, on Thursdays. We start at 9, and we finish at around 3 on Thursday, every Thursday. We see these individuals, and we work with them on a constant basis, regardless if they're referred by Judge Rep, or his successors now, or Judge Kelbley, or myself. It doesn't matter who refers them. We're looking at these people as people that have an issue and seeing how we can help them with their addiction, housing, education, employment, driver's license, and reconnecting with their families because they have cut all bounds with their families by stealing and using drugs. It is a very intensive program. From the day you start, you are drug tested a minimum twice a week, every week, until graduation. Sometimes more if we think we should. There are house checks done at all times, curfews set. We can search their homes, their cars, their phones at any time. It is an excellent program. It is set up under the best standards of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. We have went to mentor courts to check out how other courts did it and came up with our program. We think it's very successful in Seneca County. Does it save everyone? No. But does it help and save some? Yes. And that's what it's all about.
And it is the first of its kind in the state of Ohio.
It's the first multi-jurisdictional drug court. In Ohio, we had a 5-year pilot project, and that expires next year. So hopefully the state legislature will renew that.
Thank you. Now, where do we begin for the next question? I believe it's Dave. Thank you. Thank you. Someone is always paying attention. My fear is missing out on the timer. You know. So, still on the pivot. Okay. So, what are the advantages of the Pivot Drug Court program?
I think the biggest advantage of the Pivot Drug Program is helping to save individuals' lives that have a substance abuse addiction, providing them the tools and working with them to develop the motivation for them to live a clean and sober life. Pivot, as Judge Schuff has said, is an intensive program right from the start with the class and coursing materials you have to take. You're meeting with caseworkers, probation officers, drug testing multiple times a week. Oftentimes that has to be increased because individuals may relapse, okay? So you have to work with those individuals, and also you're also working to make a whole change for the individual. Housing, education, redeveloping family ties. That's important to help people grow and to combat addiction.
Okay, thank you. Kenneth?
Thank you. I completely agree with Damon that the clearest benefit of Pivot is that it is saving lives. It's a public program in the sense that we invite people to come and watch the miracles that are happening in Pivot. These Pivot graduations are like weddings. People come in, they're reunited with their family, they're crying. It's a wonderful experience. So from a community standpoint, I can tell you, of course, we're saving lives. One of the things that I was looking at and originally researching what we were going to do when we decided to try and look at something like Pivot was we learned, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but we learned fiscally that drug recovery programs, which by the way started back in Miami in the 80s, it's not a new type of program, we have a new program. They save money because of recidivism rates being reduced. And from a personal standpoint, I get to meet these people rather than just see them as a number, which we've had to do for years. So it's really nice to get to personalize these folks.
Thank you. Kenny?
Yeah, I think I answered this question previously, and that is the big benefit of the Pivot program is local judicial control, meaning through the court, you have individuals that are tested as frequently as needed, monitored, and then there's quick turnaround information to the court to see if the individual is compliant. So that way, if you have people that relapse, you can address that. And it's much faster than if a person goes through traditional adjudication, which is they get convicted and then they get on probation and there's a period of time that they can end up relapsing anyway. So you can address problems quicker. The court can decide what additional sanctions are needed for purposes of compliance. And if individuals aren't serious about addressing their drug problem, then certainly they can be dealt with traditional adjudication. So it reduces the revolving door of arrest, release, and reoffending of drug offenders.
Thank you. And so we now go to Kenneth for the next two questions. They are the last ones, correct? Okay. Okay. So, Kenneth, do you have a plan to streamline the workload of the court?
I have an aggressive and active case docket management plan that I've developed really with Judge Schuff over a decade. I drafted the civil and criminal and domestic case management plans that we use in Judge Schuff's court. And here's what we do. I'll try and do it briefly. Supreme Court gives us timelines by which to settle a case. Divorce with children is an example. They say get it done within 18 months. That's a guideline for the entire state. We cut that in half. In Seneca County, we don't need 18 months. Maybe Cleveland needs 18 months. Seneca County, we cut it in half. If you need 50 hearings between now and 9 months from now, I'll give them to you, but your case is going to be done. Justice delayed is justice denied. That's a philosophy that I believe in. And so, yes, trending, we generally run much lower than other types of courts that run on those strict guidelines. Of course, there are exceptions, but yeah, I have a very active case management style.
Thank you, Kenneth. Kenny?
Yeah, under the Supreme Court guidelines, as Ken said, they have time frames to handle cases. In my goal would be to have our cases resolved shorter than what the time limits are required from the Ohio Supreme Court. Does it need to be half the time? It needs to be less time than what is absolutely needed for purposes of efficiently running the docket. I think it's important that criminal cases are handled immediately because you have people that are in jail, you have victims, and certainly justice delayed is justice denied, especially in a criminal case, that the case should take precedence over a civil case for purposes of hearings and trials. And I would move the cases along. The thing that's frustrating for witnesses that come to court is when they come to court and then there's a delay because there's a continuance that's granted, and then they come back again, another continuance is granted. So I would have a goal of reducing the number of continuances so cases are handled efficiently and effectively and within the shorter time frames.
Thank you. Steve?
I agree with Magistrate Pleas. Cases must move ahead, otherwise they get bogged down. People's lives are affected by the filing. If you've ever been sued, you know what I mean. And to have a case take longer than is necessary is absolutely wrong. If you are in and working, you can handle these cases within a proper amount of time. Continuances should only be granted for good cause shown. That's the rule. Unless you have good cause, you're not going to get a continuance. It is unfair to witnesses, and it's unfair to the parties, and it's unfair to children.
15 seconds.
Thank you. It's unfair to children whose lives are disrupted by perhaps a domestic relations case. It is important to proceed properly, but cautiously. Thank you.
Okay. Damon?
While I agree with the other panelists as to the need to comply with the Supreme Court rules and have cases timely adjudicated, we also can't be short-sighted, and we have to keep in mind doing what's best for the litigants. In not every case can cases just proceed. You may have abused children, you may have sexually abused children, you may have really bad custody cases, you may have complex, intertwined financial situations that take time to resolve. If you force a case through, how is that justice to the litigants? If you tell those parties you only have so much time, otherwise I'm just going to force you here in court, all you're going to do is increase the likelihood they come back. Children need counseling, that takes time. You want to make sure plans are in place that provide best interest for children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Our last question, and we'll start with Kenneth. This involves scheduling. Can court dates for Seneca County Jail inmates be moved closer together?
Are you starting with me or with Mr. Egbert?
Kenneth, you.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Can court dates for Seneca County Jail inmates be moved closer together?
I'm not sure I understand what that question is.
I'm not
I'd be
sure.
happy to answer if there could be more clarification. I guess I'm not sure what that question's asking me.
For our questions, was that an email or was that an in-person? In person. If you'll permit me, would the person who asked the question care to explain? Yes, ma'am.
Part of the question was, so often inmates don't know when their next case was. They're just sitting there, oh, I don't know. I mean, a month or 2 months or 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
Thank you.
if I could, she asked, so often it seems that inmates in the jail are just sitting there and they don't know when their case is. I can only speak from my experience in following the law in the Seneca County Common Pleas Court. It's the highest level trial court in the state court system. We're dealing with the most serious crimes in our community. Every person in our court is appointed a lawyer or has a lawyer retained immediately. It is the obligation of a lawyer who is appointed on a criminal felony case to notify defendants of their court dates. Until they have a lawyer, if they're in court, they are notified through the jail system. Thank you.
Good. Kenny?
Yeah, this is a notification issue, so I would let you know that if I was common pleas judge, I would make sure that the jail and the attorney that represents that inmate has notice of their next hearing. And I would do that in court at the prior hearing and tell them when their next date is in court so that they know and that the attorney knows. And I've been in courts where the judges even have the defense attorney initial the court notice that they've been provided to have proof that the attorney not only heard it, but they initialed it, that they got the notification. So that way the inmate knows that their attorney has the notification. So notification is an important issue, and I would ensure that inmates in the jail would get notification of their next court hearing.
Steve?
Scheduling is very important. And so I do all my criminal docket all together. Monday afternoon and Tuesday afternoon are devoted strictly to criminal scheduling so that transport from the sheriff's office can bring everybody at once and they can meet with their attorneys. When we're done with the hearing, their next hearing is scheduled in court on the record with the attorney there saying, is this date good? How soon are we ready to go on the next day? So like today, I had hearings this morning. We set the next hearing. I said, counsel, how soon would you be ready? We'll be ready for the next hearing May 16th. Fine. May 16th, 3:30, we'll see you then. The defendant is there. They still get a court notice, but it's on the record.
15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Damon?
With response to that question, what we do is, in our court, when we have someone coming through for an arraignment, I should say bond hearing first, what we try and do, we immediately try and appoint counsel to ensure that their rights are met. And we try and do the bond and arraignment at the same time. So we're being fiscally responsible. Instead of doing a bond hearing, then having the attorney come back and do an arraignment, we do both at once. And then at the end of that arraignment, the individuals are notified while they have counsel present of the next scheduled jail date. And lots of times scheduled jail dates, not jail dates, but court dates are put on the record and they're memorialized in the judgment entry. And also it is the duty of counsel representing those parties to relay on those court dates to their clients. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. We will now move to the 1-minute concluding statement, and we'll begin with Kenneth, since we're staying in order.
Thank you. The Common Pleas Court is the highest level trial court in the state court system, right? Its most important function is presiding over felony criminal litigation, without question. I've been a felony prosecutor, a felony defense attorney, civil litigator. I am endorsed of the 3 candidates by the Harold J. Fraley Sr. Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 128, after they had a candidates night and heard from all of us and later chose to vote. Now those folks know all of us. I would ask you to consider and ask yourselves, why did they choose to have a primary candidates night and why did they choose to endorse a candidate? And I suggest to you that that says something about my character and my integrity on the bench. I've been on the bench over 10 years. If the police officers in this community think I'm doing the right job, then I carry that with pride and I continue to do so. And I ask you to join them in supporting me for the next judge at the Seneca County Common Pleas Court. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Kenneth. Kenny?
If elected judge, I'll have judicial independence. I will judge cases fairly and impartially without any outside influences from either the defense, the prosecution, or any side of the case. I'm asking for your vote for judge because I have more than 30 years of Common Pleas Court legal and trial experience. 19 years locally as a county prosecutor handling felony cases here in Seneca County, and 13 additional years of Common Pleas Court experience as an Assistant Ohio Attorney General, prosecuting both civil and criminal cases in more than 40 other Ohio counties. I will draw from this unique experience, having worked with dozens of common pleas judges throughout the state, and will apply best judicial practices I have learned from these courts to efficiently manage and decide cases. I also have administrative experience as a judge, to be a judge, as I served 10 years as the county prosecutor, supervised a staff of 10 office personnel, and was the legal advisor for the county and township officials. I wrote prosecutor legal opinions.
Time.
And finally, I ask for your vote.
Kenny, thank you. Steve?
Well, not to outdo Mr. Egbert, but I have 44 years of experience. Some people say I'm old.
I'm not running against Judge Shaw.
No, he's not. I'm running unopposed at this time. But This is my last term. I am going to be termed out after the end of this term, like Judge Kelby is termed out. There's an age limit. I enjoy my job. As I told many of you, I love it. I thank God that I get to come into the office and work as judge. It has been my career goal. I've worked it now, I'm on my 24th year. I have a passion for this job.
15 seconds.
Sometimes I'm surprised I get paid to do something I really enjoy. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Damon. Please.
I know there's been a lot that's been discussed here tonight, and I want to thank you all for being here and listening to what we as candidates had to say. I will ensure that as judge, I will serve with fairness, integrity, and honesty, and will uphold the laws written. I will take time and attention necessary in each and every case to make an informed decision, treating all parties with dignity and respect and allowing them to be heard. I will answer the phone at 3 a.m. to sign search warrants for law enforcement. I have a great relationship with law enforcement, and I continue to do so. I never actively sought any endorsements. I never wanted to leverage my relationships with law enforcement. I promise to take and utilize my diverse experience and see cases from all perspectives and make sure victims are made whole. As a lifelong resident, I chose to never leave Seneca County and try to continue to do my part as magistrate, acting judge, and Seneca County treasurer to help ensure Seneca County remains a great place to live. Thank you for your support on May 3rd.
Thank you. Now, tonight's program is being broadcast as we speak on the League of Women Voters Facebook page, thanks to the broadcasting capabilities of Tiffin City Schools, and also on Seneca County Scanner. So 2 live channels, and it will be available then as a recording thereafter. The Spring 2022 Voter Guide is also available on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. It is not available on our website because our webmaster had a death in the family. Our condolences to Nate Lucius, and he's not able to do it on there. We are grateful for the Seneca News Daily and Dale Depew for hosting us temporarily at this time so that you could have a voter guide. It's 14 pages long, even though it is a primary, so happy reading. And we thank our participants, the committee, the question screeners, Mr. Tim Weber and Mr. Noah Edmiston of the broadcasting capabilities of Tiffin City Schools. Early voting is now in progress. Do vote on or before Wednesday, May 3rd. Tuesday. Yes, it's Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. This concludes our 2022 League of Women Voters of Tiffin pre-primary candidates night. Thank you very much.